my name is Divya Nori and I'm a senior at Milton High School in Georgia. Today, I'm going to be giving a talk entitled Beyond a Moment of Silence: How STEM Can Help Prevent Gun Violence and School Shootings. The first time I remember hearing about a school shooting was in the middle of 4th grade. 20 children and 6 staff members died at Sandy Hook Elementary School on December 14, 2012. At the time, I didn't read the news articles describing the tragedy, but I remember my mom telling me that 6 and 7-year-olds had died while they were at school. And although that felt scary as an elementary schooler, I don't think I truly understood what that meant. I didn't understand that these kids had gone to school on the bus just like any other day, but they never came back. And for a few years in between, although mass shootings continued to occur, the death tolls weren't high enough to garner national media attention, so the tragedies slipped into the background. Until my freshman year, when I saw this headline: Florida school shooting, at least 17 dead. A gunman opened fire at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida on February 14th. A few days later, my school participated in a walkout. We had 17 minutes of silence to honor the 17 lives lost. And in February 2018, there were over 3,000 schools that participated in walkouts and protests. March for Our Lives also became prominent, and for a few weeks, my school, community, and the nation at large kept Parkland in their thoughts. But just as Sandy Hook slipped into the background, to an extent, Parkland did too. Because while Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School is just the next state over from where I live, from inside the affluent bubble of Milton, Georgia, gun violence didn't seem like a pressing concern. We were close by distance, but far by experience. But just 3 months later, when another devastating shooting occurred at Santa Fe High School, it became evident that thoughts and prayers don't save lives. Gun violence is an ongoing concern, and we can't let the presence of a national headline affect the extent of our activism. I started to read news articles about the tragedy and found that a lot of them said that the Santa Fe community was unsurprised. The shooter had posted a Facebook photo just days before the shooting, wearing a t-shirt with the phrase "Born to Kill," and there were other signs like this. Many other shootings show similar patterns. For example, the perpetrator of the 2019 Dayton shooting liked and retweeted several tweets about a previous shooting in El Paso. The Parkland shooter made a disturbing Instagram post indicating that he planned to carry out the shooting. Even the Sandy Hook shooter's obsession with the violent video game Call of Duty could have been a warning sign. But that begs the question: how far is too far? Is tweeting about a fascination with guns concerning? How about posting a picture with a disturbing t-shirt? Looking at these rather qualitative characteristics and trying to draw serious conclusions from them can be misleading. And that is where technology can help. Technology's greatest asset is analyzing and quantifying large amounts of data in a short amount of time. So we could use technology to quantify whether or not an individual is high risk for violence based on large amounts of qualitative social media posts. I started to look at a few studies that used computational techniques to analyze school shooting data. And I was interested in the results boxed here in red. 75% of previous shooters had an interest in past shootings, as evidenced by social media posts, and 80% were suicidal. So how can we use that information? What if we were able to actually look for these patterns and quantify them? I imagined this type of algorithm. Each word in a tweet or message would be assigned a coefficient. The coefficient would be higher if it's predictive or has a positive correlation with one of these two patterns: uncanny interest in previous shootings or suicidal ideation. For example, in this phrase, the word kill has a coefficient of 0.8, which is a highly positive coefficient. Protective words such as happy or life would have a negative coefficient. Some words such as was or to may have coefficients of 0, and words like I may have slightly positive coefficients because they show self-interest. The numbers shown in the previous slide were arbitrary values, but how would we actually come up with each coefficient? The answer is with vast amounts of data. Using the Python programming language and a library called Tweepy that allows Python to sample the Twitter stream, I collected over 1.6 million tweets. Using the DSM-5 criteria for intermittent explosive disorder and major depressive disorder, the tweets were classified into curated case and control cohorts. This data was the input for 3 different machine learning models I trained in Python. The output of the models was words and coefficients. Each word that came up in at least 5% of the training data had a corresponding coefficient computed for it. So going back to this sample message, the coefficients from the model would be used to compute the final score. And while it's not a simple addition expression as shown here, we can conceptualize it that way. The score will always be between 0 and 1, where higher scores indicate concern. At this point, you might be thinking that there are a few problems with this approach. For example, what about a misleading word? If an individual tweeted, "These guns make me happy," the model might get confused because happy is associated with a negative coefficient, because negative coefficients mean that there's a negative correlation between the word and violent sentiments. This is avoided by not only assigning coefficients to words, but also to groups of words. The model computes a coefficient of negative 0.8 for the word happy, but a coefficient of positive 0.95 for the phrase, "guns make me happy." So this overall phrase would actually have a total score of 0.95, which is highly positive and therefore concerning. Another problem is teenagers often use words like die sarcastically, especially on social media. With a phrase like, "Math is so hard, I want to die, LOL." This may not indicate genuine concern, and it may have to be backed up by other, more concerning messages to suggest suicidal ideation. One way that we can avoid this problem is by training the model with data that aligns with the use case. The data used to train the model was tweets, curated from a millennial and Gen Z audience. So since the model is trained on data that already contains a lot of sarcasm, it's able to apply these conclusions to new messages. Another solution to this problem is a score threshold. For the model I trained, my threshold is 0.4, meaning that if a message scores higher than that value of 0.4, patterns of suicidal ideation or glorification of violence have been spotted. While the message shown here may have a positive score due to the word die, its score likely would not surpass 0.4, and there would likely not be any concern. So at this point, we have a model that can take in a message and give us a score. How can we use that to create a real tool for users? I created a mobile application named iSense. iSense currently has the capability to monitor a teen's outgoing SMS messages, score each one using the model, and if the score is higher than 0.4, an adult with a linked account receives a notification. Here's a quick demo. Here I have a child's phone on the left and the parent's phone on the right. So we can log in using both phones and the child can go into the regular SMS app. First, we can send a message that doesn't really indicate any concern, such as want to grab lunch. After the message is sent, we can see that the parent does not receive any notification. Now we can send a message that indicates teenage sarcasm, such as, "Math is so hard, I want to die, LOL." So at this point, the AI model is scoring the message, and again, no notification is sent. However, if we send a message that may indicate genuine concern, such as, "Why am I so alone?" Again, we send the message, and almost instantaneously, the parent receives a notification indicating that they have an iSense alert. One concern with this type of app is ensuring the user's safety, since their social media content is being monitored. iSense tackles this by conducting the scoring process directly on the phone. So the content of posts or messages never leaves the phone itself. Only the numerical score is saved to a cloud database. I would like to share a few more ways that STEM can be used to prevent gun violence and school shootings. And while lobbying, protesting, and other forms of social activism are critically important to the cause as well, STEM presents another avenue by which we can take action. First off, a similar type of app could be created to score images posted on the Instagram or Facebook, which would have been extremely useful in the case of the Parkland or Santa Fe shootings. Deep learning image processing algorithms are being developed to classify images based on whether or not they display violent sentiment. Modern neuroscience research is also attempting to understand violent behavior at a genetic and biochemical level, and this could help us create more effective therapeutics for intermittent explosive disorder. Technology and STEM in general hold immense potential to prevent gun violence and school shootings in the future. And although #NeverAgain may stop trending, we can still affect change beyond a moment of silence. Thank you.